Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Welcome to the finale, the final installment, pretty much, for the Ranger class through the Ages series, where we take a look at the history and evolution of the Ranger class throughout the D&D history, as well as Pathfinder 1st, 2nd edition, because it is so closely tied to Dungeons and Dragons. This is going to be the last video in the series discussing the actual class abilities. And for all intents and purposes, it is the finale of the series. I will be doing a bonus video, however, where I just go through and essentially rank my preference for the different versions of the class that we've discussed, from my least favorite, the version of the class that I least want to play, to the version of the class that I most want to play. So that will be a bonus video sort of coming out at some point in the near future. It will be included in the playlist, but if you're mainly just interested in the history of the class, then this will be the final installment as far as that goes. So we're going to be focusing on Pathfinder 2nd edition here, but we are going to take a quick look at the playtest for Pathfinder 2nd edition as well. I didn't want to do these as two separate videos, and when it comes to Pathfinder 2nd edition, one of the key design concepts for the game as a whole is that basically every element of your character is customizable, be it your heritage, your background, and even your class itself. So each class will have certain static abilities that all versions of the class will get, which is going to be the primary thing that we focus on. But the way that you customize the character is at various levels. You have a selection of feats that you can choose from, which give you some more kind of advanced abilities for the class. And we'll take a look at a few of those, but again, there's just going to be so many that I don't necessarily want to look at every single one. But we're going to look at, like I said, the things that all the Ranger classes would get, all the different variations of the Ranger that you could come up with. These are going to be the abilities that they all get, as well as at least a few sample feats so you get an idea of how they function for that. So, like I said, we got the Pathfinder 2nd edition hardcover here, but we're just going to set that off to the side for now, and we're going to take a look at the Pathfinder playtest. So this is the printed version of the playtest. This was the initial release before any of the playtest surveys were done, before any of the modifications and changes to the game systems, classes, class abilities, things like that were put into effect. I honestly was so far behind trying to keep up with the playtest that I just never did get all of the updates downloaded. So I'm not going to focus on how the class changed throughout the playtest, because I think it's going to just be better to have the playtest version and the final version. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Ranger class. I think it's on starts on page 112, I believe. Yeah, so we got the Ranger on page 112. Their class features here, class abilities, they start with a key ability or a key attribute of dexterity. So you get a bonus to whatever your class's key ability score is. So if you're making a Ranger, when you're creating your character, your class does give you a +2 bonus to your dexterity. Their hit points are equal to 10 plus their constitution modifier. And for proficiencies, they are an expert in perception, which is used for a few different things, including largely it is used for initiative in combat, but you can also use it for basic perception as well. They are also an expert in all three of the saving throw types, so fortitude, reflex, and will. And they can become trained in a number of skills equal to 6 plus their intelligence modifier. They don't have to choose from a specific list. They can just get 6 skills that they are proficient in. They are trained in simple and martial weapons. They are trained in light armor and medium armor. Now here they have the signature skills of acrobatics, athletics, crafting, nature, stealth, and survival. Signature skills was a mechanic that was actually dropped from the final game. And essentially what it was a means of making the classes have certain skills that were always associated with the class or strongly associated with the class, and kind of would have been like the equivalent of like class skills from Pathfinder 1st edition. But with the signature skills, they were the only ones that a character could take beyond the expert level of proficiency. So there was trained, expert, master and legendary levels of training. And in the playtest, the original version of the playtest, you had the signature skills, which were the only skills that you could have based on your class that could go to a master or legendary level of training. So let's take a look at the key features that they get here. So the first one that we have is Hunt Target. It is a one action ability, so that's what that symbol indicates. With Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it kind of did away with your traditional move action, standard action, and like bonus action. Instead, you just get 3 actions that you can do during your turn in combat, and certain actions may cost more than one of those 3. So certain things might have a cost of 2 of your 3 actions. Some might even cost all 3 of your actions. So that's sort of the way that that works. But it gives you a little bit more flexibility once you really wrap your head around the system. And once you start coming up with sort of unique or interesting things to try with that third action, if you've already moved and attacked, or if you've already attacked a couple of times, it's actually a really flexible system, and something that I really do like about it. I kind of enjoy like improvising or having players improvise stuff in combat. So with the 3 action system, it's super easy to be able to do that. So this is one action. It says you designate a single creature within 100 feet of you as your target and focus your attacks against that creature. While hunting the creature, you gain benefits for focusing your attacks. As long as all your attacks in a round are made against the target you're hunting, the multiple attack penalty you take is -4 or -3 if your weapon has the agile trait, as opposed to -5. So if you take an attack, your first attack in combat is made at your normal bonus. If you use another action to make a second attack, however, you have a -5 penalty to your normal attack bonus. And if you decide to make a third attack in a round, normally the penalty is -10, with -10 being the highest level of penalty you would get on your attack. So if for some odd reason you were able to make a fourth attack after that, it would still be at -10. But with the Hunt Target, if you're focusing on them and attacking them, then the multiple attack penalty is actually reduced. So it would be -4. Or -3 with an agile weapon instead of -5, and it would be -8 or -6 with an agile weapon on the third attack instead of -10. You also ignore the penalty for making ranged attacks against the target you're hunting within your second range increment, and you also gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks when you sneak your target, or when you seek your target, sorry, when you're trying to spot them if they're hidden, your target, and you get a +2 circumstance bonus to survival checks when you go to track the target. You can only have one creature designated as your target of your hunt at one time. If you use the hunt target against a creature when you already have another creature designated, the prior creature loses its designation and the new target becomes the focus of your hunt instead. In any case, the designation will last until your next daily preparation. Now again, we do see that at first level and every even numbered level, the ranger gains a class feat. So we'll take a look at some of those, like I said, a little bit further on. At second level, they also gain, in every 2 levels thereafter, they gain skill feats. So these are feats that you would normally get, you would take based off a skill that you have training in, and you can have some like unique abilities based off of the feat that you take for those skills. At third level, you also gain general feats. You get skill increases, so you can go from untrained to trained or trained to expert. Or if it's a signature skill at certain levels, you can go from expert to master, or from master to legendary. Then we get weapon expertise. So at third level, the ranger chooses a single weapon group, and your proficiency rank increases to expert for simple and martial weapons of the group, and you gain access to the critical specialization effects of the weapons in that group. So some may allow you to do like a knock the target prone if you hit with a critical, or you might be able to give them some sort of condition or penalty. So you would unlock that with that ability. At 5th level and every 5 levels thereafter, you boost different ability scores. So again, those are just +2 bonuses. At 5th level, you get trackless step. So when you move through natural terrains, you were difficult to track, you always gain the benefits of the cover tracks action in such terrains without having to move at half your speed. You gain new ancestry feats, which are from your ancestry or race. If you're used to For example, like older editions or even current edition D&D. Ancestry is just the new terminology that was used for that in Pathfinder, and you actually gain new abilities based on your ancestry as you progress through levels, which is something that I kind of like because, again, you're not always going to have all the skills that you might expect to have just because you're a full-grown member of your species. I think we all know, adults, and I definitely include myself, that picked up more skills as they got older, as opposed to being having everything at the time they became a legal adult. They also get evasion at 7th level, so your senses and reflexes are honed on the Rager's Edge, allowing you to leap out of harm's way. You gain master proficiency in the reflex saves and perception. And when you succeed at a reflex save, you treat the outcome as a critical success instead. So it's similar to the Pathfinder 1st Edition regular evasion, or even 3rd Edition and 3.5 D&D evasion, where the first version of it, you take no damage on a successful save, but you still take normal damage on a failed save. At 9th level, you gain Nature's Edge, so you treat enemies in areas of natural difficult terrain or difficult terrain resulting from a snare as flat-footed. You get Wild Stride at 11th level, so you can ignore the effects of non-magical difficult terrain and reduce the effects of non-magical greater difficult terrain, treating it as if it were difficult instead. Difficult terrain or greater difficult terrain effects of hazardous terrain affect you normally. So, like thick brambles wouldn't necessarily slow you down, but you might still take damage by going through them. Or if you moved through, if you stepped in like something that was on fire, for example, you may not be slowed down by moving through it if it's sort of like, again, thick brush, but you would take the fire damage. Not the best example, but it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, so we're going to have to just work with what I have available to me. And then they get Weapon Mastery at 13th level, so the weapon group that they took expertise in, their proficiency level simply increases from expert to master. They gain improved evasion at 15th level, so you become legendary at reflex saves and perception. When you critically fail a reflex save, you treat the outcome as a failure instead. Now keep in mind, with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, critical failures is usually like you take double damage. So on a critical success on a dexterity saving throw, you can usually take no damage, but there is an opposite side to that coin where you can take double the amount of damage if you really fumble your saving throw. So with improved evasion, you treat a critical failure as simply a failure, and when you fail a reflex save, you only take half damage. So it works, again, sort of similar the way that it was before. It's just if you do critically fail, you're just taking normal damage, and if you fail, then you just take half damage. So again, pretty decent ability there. And at 15th level, I'm okay with that ability at that level. At 17th level, you get Masterful Hunter. You can blend your weapon mastery with skillful targeting to make a series of accurate attacks. If you are a master with your weapon, as long as all your weapon attacks in a round are against the target that you're hunting that we talked about before, the multiple attack penalty you take from the second attack is -3 instead of -4, or -2 with an agile weapon instead of the normal -5, and it's -6 or -4 with an agile weapon instead of -10 for the third and any subsequent attacks made in the round. If you are a master with your weapons, you can ignore the penalty against the target of your hunt for attacking within its second or third range increment. So if you're using a bow, you have more pinpoint accuracy against that hunted target even further out than you were able to before. And if you're a master in perception, you gain a +4 circumstance bonus to perception checks when you seek the target. And if you're a master in survival, you gain a +4 circumstance bonus to survival checks to track them. And then at 19th level, you get the swift target. You can use the hunt target as a free action, triggered before you make the first strike each round. So instead of it costing one of your 3 actions, it just simply becomes a free action. So again, we'll just take a look at some of their abilities, some of the feats. We're not going to go through every single one, but we do have things like the Animal Companion. At first level, you gain the services of an animal companion, so you can give up one of your actions in a round to give it 2 actions that it can use to either move and attack, or attack and attack, or attack and move, or do anything that that a creature could do with those sort of 2 actions. So pretty cool. They do get not all rangers have an animal companion, but if you wanted to have one, it's right there as a first level feat. There's crossbow ace, so it says when you use the hunt target, or when you use the interact to reload your crossbow, if your next strike with the crossbow is against your hunted target, you add half your wisdom modifier to the damage roll. If you're firing a simple crossbow on a qualifying attack, also increase the damage dice by 1 step. So like a d6 would be a d8, a d8 would be a d10. And that's actually not a bad ability, because in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you don't add any, normally you don't add an attribute modifier to ranged attacks. So you would use your dexterity bonus for attack rolls, but the damage would just be normally whatever is listed for the weapon. So like a longbow might be a d8, and that would be all the damage that you would do, unless you have special abilities that you can kind of put on there. And again, it's kind of cool that it is the crossbow, because of that the iconic ranger that they show, the Dwarven Ranger, is often depicted with a crossbow. So that's just, again, kind of a cool ability. And against the first level feat, there's double slice, so you make 1 strike. Now that does take 2 actions, so you can sort of see the symbol there. But you make 1 strike with each of the weapons that you're holding, both at your current multiple attack penalty. The second strike takes a -2 circumstance penalty if the weapon doesn't have the agile trait. If both attacks hit, you combine the damage before you would apply things like resistances or vulnerabilities, or things along those lines. And it counts as two attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalties. So ideally, you would be using this as your first attack in the round. You'd be able to attack with both weapons. If you're going up against a creature that might have a particular type of damage resistance, then if you're applying both weapons together, the resistance only gets applied once, as opposed to being applied to each source of damage separately like it might normally be. And you would make those, like I said, at your normal attack penalty. However, because it counts as 2 attacks, if you made another attack afterwards, it would be at the -10 penalty normally. So again, pretty cool ability. And then there's Monster Hunter. When you critically succeed to identify a target you're hunting with recall knowledge, you and your allies, if you tell them, gain a +1 circumstance bonus to their next attack roll against it. But not other creatures of that species. So again, cool stuff there. At 2nd level, we do have like favored aim. So attempt a ranged weapon strike against your hunted target. Ignore concealed and screened, which are just things that would either increase their armor class or be penalties on your attack roll. And reduce the target's bonus by cover or from cover by 2. If the target isn't benefiting from any of those, you gain a +2 bonus to the attack roll. So you do get some stuff for the ranged attacks, as well as 2-up and fighting stuff. So it does have a lot of the this kind of the standard ranger tropes, but you can also mix and match those as well if you want. You also like quick draw, which is a good one. So you can interact to draw a weapon and attack with it in the same action, as opposed to it being 2 separate actions like it would normally be. So they do get some really cool abilities, and like I said, they are, again, focused on like 2-up and fighting, some range stuff with both like just any type of range attack, or some crossbow specific stuff, and you do get some really cool animal companion abilities. So they get some really cool stuff in the playtest. So that was the playtest version. So now we're going to take a look at the final rule set. All right, so here we have the final version, a finalized version of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition core rulebook. So we're just going to take a look at the Ranger class here. Okay, so the Ranger class begins its description on page 167, and here you can see the same artwork that was in the 2nd Edition playtest, but now it is full color, and there you can see the crossbow that I had mentioned before, along with the dual axes. So the Ranger here in the finalized version of the rules, their key ability is either strength or dexterity. So in the playtest, it was just dexterity, but in the final version, you choose if it's either strength or dexterity. So if you choose strength, you get a +2 bonus to your strength attribute to a maximum of 18 at first level, or if you choose dexterity, then you get the +2 bonus to that. I want to say for your class DC, it's also based on the key ability that you chose. So certain abilities might require saving throws, and they typically use the class's key ability. And once you make that choice, you are locked into it. They still retain the 10 hit points plus their con modifier at every level. They are also still an expert in perception as well as fortitude and reflex. However, they are now only trained in the will saves, which is actually the way that they were also, their saving throws were done in Pathfinder 1st Edition as well as 3.5 D&D. So they are trained, they're basically have good saves in 2 out of the 3. Their skills, they are automatically trained in nature and survival, and they are trained in a number of additional skills equal to 4 plus their intelligence modifier. So instead of it being just 6 plus their intelligence modifier and you get to choose anything, you get 2 automatically, and then you also have 4 plus your intelligence modifier that you can choose. Your background will also give you proficiency in certain skills, and even your choice of ancestry might also give you a proficiency. So if any of them overlap, then instead you just get proficiency from one of those sources, and from the source that you would have had a duplicate in, you just get to choose another skill. So if your background already gave you nature, for example, but not survival, then you would have survival from the class, and then you get to choose 5 others instead of 4. So you never lose a training or proficiency, even though like you might have proficiency in the same skill from 2 different sources. So again, I do like the way that that was handled. For attacks, they are trained in simple and martial weapons as well as unarmed strikes, which I believe every class is trained in unarmed strikes as well as unarmored defense. They are trained in light armor and medium armor, and they are trained in the Ranger class DC. So for their standard abilities, they still get Hunt Prey. So we'll take a look here. It says you designate a single creature as your prey, and you focus your attacks against it. You must be able to see or hear the prey, or you must be tracking the prey during exploration. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks when you seek your prey, and a +2 circumstance bonus to survival checks to track it, which I think was pretty much the same as what we had before. You also ignore the penalty for making range attacks within your second range increment while you're hunting. You can have only one creature designated as your prey at a time. If you use Hunt Prey against a creature when you already have one chosen, you just drop the first one and the new one has the focusing on it. And the focus on the creature can last until you do your next daily preparations. So it is fairly similar, but it does actually remove the bonus to, or the reduction in multiple attack penalties against the target. So it's that is an interesting change, but we also do have the Hunter's Edge ability, which was not in the playtest. So let's take a look at that one here. So it says you have trained for countless hours to become a more skilled hunter and tracker, gaining an additional benefit when you hunt your prey depending on the focus of your training. So you choose a Hunter's Edge. So you make this choice at, I believe you make this choice at first level. So you can choose Flurry. So you have trained to unleash a devastating flurry of attacks upon your prey. And this is the one that actually reduces the attack penalty. So your multiple attacks would be -3 or -2 with an agile weapon instead of -5, or -6 or -4 with an agile weapon for your third and subsequent attack instead of -10. So that's if you choose the flurry training when you create your character, then that's the ability that you would get. You also have precision though. So you've trained to aim for your prey's weak points. The first time you hit your hunted prey in a round, you also deal an additional 1d8 precision damage. Precision damage increases the damage you deal already using the same type. So it would be, so if it's a piercing weapon, it would be considered piercing damage if the target has like any resistances or things like that. And it is ineffective against creatures that lack vital organs or weak points. So things like undead, oozes, plants, constructs, stuff like that you wouldn't be able to deal precision damage to, but that's part of their abilities to begin with. At 11th level, the extra damage increases to 2d8 precision damage, and at 19th level, it increases to 3d8. And then you have Outwit as the third option. So you are talented at outwitting and evading your prey. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to deception checks, intimidation checks, stealth checks, and any checks to recall knowledge about the prey, and a +1 circumstance bonus to your armor class against your prey's target. So actually that's pretty cool. You do get to, again, customizing even your hunting ability is still, I think, is actually pretty cool. I think I would choose the precision out of all of the ones there. Flurry is also not bad. Outwit is something that I probably wouldn't bother too much with personally, but I also don't get a chance to play as a player very often, so if I do get the opportunity, it's usually only for a couple of sessions, so I, will tend to avoid abilities that I don't think I would get a chance to use in those couple of sessions. They're all decent, but I think Precision is my favorite, followed by Flurry and then Outwit. They still get the Ranger feats, skill feats, general feats, and then they get abilities that increase their saving throws, their training in weapons and armor, their attribute boost, their additional ancestry feats. So that's sort of what we have for all of these first few abilities, like skill feats, general feats. Iron Will, you go from trained to expert. So at that third level, you would be an expert in all three of the saving throws, as opposed to at first level. Your skill increases, your attribute abilities. You do get Trackless Step still here at 5th level, so when you move through natural terrains, you were difficult to track, you always gain the benefits of cover tracks action in such terrains without having to move at half speed, so that's pretty much the same as what we had before. Weapon Expertise, it's the same thing as before. You choose you dedicate yourself to learning intricacies of your weapons. Your proficiency ranks for simple and martial weapons increases to expert. You gain access to the critical specialization effects of all simple and martial weapons when attacking your hunted prey. So unlike the playtest, you don't choose a weapon group. It's just the weapons that your character is already proficient in. It goes from trained to expert. So a little bit more flexibility there. They do get evasion at 7th level. So your proficiency rank for reflex increases to master from expert. And if you roll a success on a reflex save, it's considered to be a critical success. Vigilant Senses, through your adventuring, you develop keen awareness and attention to detail. Your proficiency rank for perception increases to master. Weapon Specialization at 7th level, you've learned how to inflict greater injuries with the weapons you know best. Deal 2 additional damage with weapons and unarmed attacks in which you are an expert. This damage increases to 3 if you're a master and 4 if you're a legendary proficiency level. Nature's Edge, you always find weak points in your foe's defenses when they're in unfavorable terrain. Enemies are flat-footed to you if they are in natural difficult terrain, or natural uneven ground, or in difficult terrain resulting from a snare. So again, similar to what they had in the playtest. Ranger Expertise, you've practiced your techniques to make them harder to resist, so your proficiency rank for anything that your class abilities may force a saving throw goes from trained to expert. Juggernaut, so this one looks new. Your body is accustomed to physical hardship and resilient to ailments. Your proficiency rank for fortitude save increases to master. When you roll a success on a fortitude save, it's treated as a critical success. So basically it's evasion, but for fortitude instead of reflex. Medium Armor Expertise. You've learned to defend yourself better against attacks. Your proficiency ranks in light armor, medium armor, and unarmored defense increases to expert. Wild Stride at 11th level, you move quickly through obstacles, whether they're tumbled stone, tangled undergrowth, or sucking mud. You can ignore the effects of non-magical difficult terrain as normal for ignoring difficult terrain. This also lets you treat the hindrances of greater difficulty terrain as if they were just normal difficulty. So again, if it's super thick brush or something like that, or maybe even like a quicksand type of thing, you just treat it like normal difficult terrain instead of it, basically dropping your speed even more. So again, really cool stuff there. Weapon Mastery, you fully understand the intricacies of your weapons, and you go from simple and martial weapon proficiency increase to master from expert. Greater Weapon Specialization at 15th level. Your damage from weapon specialization increases to 4 with weapons and unarmed attacks in which you are an expert. 6 if you're a master, and 8 if you are a legendary level of training. And that bonus would apply to ranged attacks, even though you normally don't get to add your dexterity ability score to it. Improved evasion at 15th level as well. So your ability to elude danger is matchless. Your proficiency rank for reflex increases to legendary, and if you roll a critical failure, it's treated as a normal failure instead. And if you fail a reflex save, you take half damage instead of the normal damage. So again, those abilities are pretty much the same as what we had before. And then you get incredible senses as well at 15th level. So that's a good level for you at 15th. You notice things, and basically your training in perception goes to legendary. You get Masterful Hunter at 17th level, so you have honed your abilities as a hunter to incredible levels. Your proficiency rank in your ranger class increases to master. When using range weapons that you have the master proficiency in, you can ignore the penalty for attacking hunted prey within the weapon's second and third range increments. And the further the increment, just the greater penalty is applied to your attack. You also gain an additional benefit depending on your hunter's edge. So if you chose Flurry originally, you can blend your weapon mastery with skillful targeting to make a series of precise attacks. If you are master proficiency with your weapon, your series of precise attacks, your multiple attack penalty is -2 or -1 with an agile weapon instead of -5. And is -4 or -2 with an agile weapon for your third attack. So that's actually even better reduction in penalties for the ranger. So I do like that one quite a bit. Precision. Your mastery allows you to hit your prey's vital areas multiple times. The second time in a round that you hit your hunted prey, you also deal 1d8 precision damage. At 19th level, your second hit in the round against your hunted prey deals an additional 2d8 precision damage, and your third hit on the round deals an additional 1d8. So instead of it just being your first and only, like first and then eventually second, you get the second goes up to first and second goes up to 2d8, and then you can get up to even a d8 on your third hit. So again, pretty good there. I do like that one. Outwit. Your mastery of skills allows you to overwhelm your prey if you have master proficiency in deception, intimidation, and stealth, or a skill that lets you use, or a skill check to recall knowledge of the prey. Increase the circumstance bonus against the prey from +2 to +4. If you are master proficiency with armor, increase the circumstance bonus to AC from +1 to +2. So again, some pretty decent abilities. I think, I gotta be honest, I think I actually like the Flurry one better for the Masterful Hunter, because it really drops those negative, those penalties, especially if you're using an agile weapon, which is probably a good idea to do anyway if you plan on making multiple attacks. But to basically only have a -1 and a -2 penalty max for multiple attacks is really good. Now, being able to deal the extra precision damage is also pretty good, and being able to do it on more than just the first hit each round is a good ability. But the fact that creatures that are immune to precision damage, like again constructs, undead, things along those lines, it's not going to be necessarily as regularly usable as the reduction in the attack penalties, and it's just, again, really, really good there. So I think in this case, it might actually make me reconsider if I wanted to use Flurry as my first level ability or not. So I think in this case, I like Flurry the most, Precision second, and then Outwit third. Second Skin at 19th level, your armor has become akin to a second skin for you. Your proficiency ranks for light armor, medium armor, and unarmored defense increases to Master. When wearing light or medium armor, you can rest normally rather than receiving poor rest that leaves you fatigued. So you can sleep in armor in Pathfinder 2nd edition, but the ranger has to be 19th level before it doesn't affect them, which is fine, because I do kind of like that, because sleeping in armor is not super realistic. Even leather armor is not like super flexible, like, you know, like a leather shirt. It was like boiled and hardened leather that wouldn't be that comfortable for sleeping in. And then you get Swift Prey. So again, you can use the Hunt Prey as a free action. during the first attack on each of your turns rather than it taking one of your 3 actions. So again, really cool stuff for the Ranger feats. Looks like we do have a lot of the similar stuff here. We do have the Animal Companion. Once again, we do have Crossbow Ace, which gives you the bonus to the damage rolls. You get Hunted Shot, so you take 2 quick shots against the target of your hunt, which they didn't actually have in the playtest. And this ability is actually pretty similar to the Rapid Shot from Pathfinder First Edition, which the Archery Ranger would get automatically for free. So you can create similar characters that way. Monster Hunter, it looks pretty much the same as well, granting a bonus to attack rolls against specific creatures. Twin Takedown, you swiftly attack your hunted prey with both weapons. You make 2 strikes against your hunted prey, 1 with each of the weapons. If both hit the same hunted prey, combine their damage, and then you apply the multiple attack penalty to the strikes normally. Oh, okay. So that's actually kind of interesting. It is only 1 action, but you make 2 attacks, and the second attack would be at a penalty. But it only takes 1 action as well, so that's kind of the trade-off there. The second one is less accurate, but it's counting as just 1 of your actions, so you could potentially get more attacks off if you really wanted to, or still be able to do other stuff. You get Favorite Terrain as a feat you can choose at 2nd level. So you have studied a specific terrain to overcome its challenges. You choose aquatic, Arctic, desert, forest, mountain, plains, sky, swamp, or underground. When in that terrain, you can ignore the effects of non-magical difficult terrain. If you have the Wild Stride class feature, you gain a second benefit while you're in your favorite terrain. So in aquatic, you gain a swim speed equal to, you gain a swim speed equal to your speed. If you already have a swim speed, it goes up by an additional 10 feet bonus in the round. Arctic, you need to eat and drink only 1/10 as much as usual, and you aren't affected by severe or extreme cold, and you can walk across ice and snow at full speed without needing to balance. So again, kind of cool. I would definitely, if we were in an Arctic setting and are making like an Elf Ranger, I would definitely choose that ability because I like the idea of the Elf Ranger or the elves just being able to walk on top of snow. Desert, you need to eat and drink only 1/10 as much. You aren't affected by severe or extreme heat. And you can walk along sand at full speed without needing to balance. So again, pretty much the opposite there. Mountain, forest, or underground, you gain a climb speed equal to your speed, and if you already have a climb speed, it goes up by an additional 10 feet. Plains, you gain a plus 10 foot status bonus to your land speed, and if you choose sky, you gain a plus 10 bonus to your fly speed if you have one. It doesn't grant you one, but if you have one, it does get to go up a little bit there. And again, a lot of the other abilities that we have, a lot of the other feats sort of are things that increase or add on to certain previous feats or class abilities. So again, we're not going to go through too many of them, but we will take a look at, for example, Hunter's Aim. So when you focus on aiming, which takes 2 actions, your attack becomes particularly accurate. Make a ranged strike against your hunted prey. On a strike, you gain a plus 2 circumstance bonus to the attack roll, and you ignore its concealed condition. So you basically sacrifice 1 action for a more accurate shot that can ignore cover, which is not bad, actually. You also can get Quick Draw, which again allows you to draw a weapon and attack with it on the same round. We do have Favorite Enemy, so you have studied a specific type of wild creature and can hunt it easily. When you gain this feat, choose animals, beasts, dragons, or both fungi and plants as your favorite enemy. When you roll initiative and can see an enemy that belongs to the chosen category, you can hunt prey as a free action, designating that enemy. You can use this free action even if you haven't identified the creature yet with a recall knowledge. The benefit doesn't apply against favorite enemies disguised as other creatures, and the GM determines whether it applies against a creature disguised as a favorite enemy. So if somebody's using illusory magic to change their appearance, then you may not get the benefit. Or the GM could say, well, this is your favorite enemy and something's trying to pretend to be it, so yeah, go nuts. So again, I kind of like some of that stuff there. And we get stuff that, again, increases like 2-weapon fighting capabilities, ranged attacks, blind fight, so you can attack things that are concealed from you. things that allow you to be better at certain skills like stealth, yeah, and things that can bump up your animal companion. So again, pretty much the same kind of thing. We do have some like snares as well, so you can use, you can create traps with the feats, which I believe they did have in the playtest as well. We just didn't take a look at it too much there. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. Like I said, I don't want to go through everything just because there's so much in terms of like the number of feats. Like the number of pages that the class went from like 2 in the playtest to like 5 or 6 for the final version. So if you want me to go over all of the feats that the Ranger class gets in the second edition Pathfinder core rulebook, let me know. But for now, we'll just sort of get sort of an idea of the abilities that they get. So they can trap creatures with snares, or they get feats that either increase their animal companion abilities, their ability to fight with 2 weapons or ranged attacks, some things that add on to different types of skills that might allow them to make, for example, stealth rolls where they may not normally be able to. Ignore cover, ignore concealment, things along those lines is kind of what you get with the Ranger class. So that was the Pathfinder 2nd edition Ranger, and I really like this class. And you know, the playtest version definitely had some interesting abilities, but I think I do like the finalized version that we got. I like the fact that again they kind of were lacking something similar to Favorite Enemy. The ability to like hunt a target is fine. You know, getting a reduction in attack penalties for multiple attacks is great, but having a bit of flexibility to be able to hunt a target but also get to deal extra damage against it instead, and having it done in such a way that you're not limited to just a specific type. Like there's the Favorite Enemy feat that you can get, which gives you benefits to attacking the targets, but the actual like damage boost from the hunting ability, if you choose precision for your hunting technique, then that can apply to anything, right? It doesn't have to be like just a specific thing. So you have to choose, like say goblinoids, right? You could just look for a specific goblin and be like, that's my target, that's the one I'm going after, that's the one I'm dealing extra damage to, and then, you know, if that one dies, spend an action to designate another target, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I really do like the class. I really love the customization options in Pathfinder 2nd edition in general. So, and I've said this before in other videos, and I will continue to say it, but when I first was going to run 2nd edition Pathfinder at my local game store pre-pandemic, I was running for a group that very few of them actually had the books themselves because it was brand new. It had just sort of come out, and you had people that were curious about it but not quite ready to commit to spending the money on the books. So I did make characters for them, and I just said, you know, whatever you want to play, because you want it, like, because there's a certain character class that you might be interested in, and that's what you want to try out, and that might be your introduction. So just whatever you want to choose, like just let me know the character that you want to play, and I will make it up for you, and you can change certain things around if you wanted to. 3 players chose spellcasters, 2 of them chose sorcerers, and 1 chose to play a wizard. And again, I didn't discourage that because I wanted them to try the class that they most wanted to. But what was great about it is that all 3 of those characters had different abilities. They felt different from one another. The sorcerer's bloodlines, for example, with what the characters or what the players had mentioned they wanted their characters to kind of be able to do, they were all 3 characters were choosing spells from different lists. The wizard was obviously choosing from the arcane list. However, you had the bloodlines for the 2 sorcerers. One was choosing from the occult spell list, and one was choosing from the divine spell list, because that's the abilities that they kind of were gravitating towards. So you had 3 characters that were, you know, on paper should have been very similar, but were actually very different. And none of them, I think only 1 spell was shared amongst 2 out of the 3 players. So it was just really, really cool. And that's one of the things that I think is a really big strength of Pathfinder 2nd Edition is the ability to customize the character how you want to. Like, you look at the abilities that are presented. So with the Ranger, again, you could choose a Beastmaster Ranger and take the feats that focus on improving your animal companion, granting it new abilities, granting it better attributes, things along those lines. Or you could choose to take the 2-weapon fighting route. You could choose crossbow fighting. You could choose ranged attacks. Or you could even go focus on like stealth and skills and trapping and things like that. So there's a lot of different options that you can have, and you can have a group of people playing the same class but having very different abilities. And truthfully, there's not a ton of abilities that the classes all share in common. So like the abilities that a crossbow ranger would have are very different from what a Beastmaster type of ranger might have. Aside from like their hunting prey and their different proficiency levels, you do get a lot of customization. And I do think that is one of the great strengths of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's also one of the things that will admittedly make Pathfinder 2nd Edition look really daunting and intimidating, right? And I totally get that. Like the fact that the Ranger class starts on, what was it, page 167. So you're already almost 200 pages into the core rulebook before you get to the Ranger class, not even like the end of the classes, but just the Ranger class. It definitely can feel really overwhelming, but once you kind of wrap your head around the way that it's structured, I think it's a really good class. And, in general, I just think Pathfinder 2nd Edition is a really fantastic game. So yeah, I really love this version of the Ranger class. But is it my favorite? Well, that's going to be the subject of a bonus video that's going to be tacked on at the end of this playlist, where I go through and rank all the different major versions of the Ranger class that I've talked about throughout this series, from 1st edition AD&D through 2nd, 3.0, 3.5, 4th, Essentials, 5th, and then Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition. And I'm only going to be looking at the final version of the Ranger for Pathfinder 2nd edition. So not the playtest, not the specifically the Beastmaster Ranger. And when it comes to the 5th edition Ranger, I'm really only factoring it in based off the player's handbook and not the support materials that came out after the fact. So that's going to be the final video in this series. But as far as the actual class descriptions and sort of the diving into the class abilities and my thoughts on them, this is the final video in the series for the Ranger. So I do want to thank everyone for that. I do hope you also check out the ranking video, which should come out a few days afterwards. I'm going to do it relatively close. And if you are watching this video, I had put up a poll on my YouTube channel for what class I should cover next. I did put in the 4 standard kind of your core fantasy trope classes of cleric, fighter, rogue / thief, and wizard, as well as the paladin. And it was actually a really close vote for quite a while. And the lead changed several times. However, in the end, the next class that we are going to be taking a look at through its evolution throughout various versions of the Dungeons & Dragons game, as well as Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition, we're going to be taking a look at the Paladin. So that's going to be the next main series to start. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I hope you do come in for the ranking video, because I think that's going to be kind of a fun one. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the 2nd edition Pathfinder Ranger? Do you want me to do a follow-up video where I actually do go over all of the different feats presented to the Ranger class in the core rulebook? And do you also want me to do a tack-on video where we look at some of the Ranger options presented in things like the Advanced Player's Guide and some of the other 2nd edition Pathfinder books to come out? Let me know all that in the comments below. But for now, I think this is a great way to end the main series. I've had a ton of fun discussing the various versions of my all-time favorite class. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. And I will see you all next time. Until then, take care.